for people watching this team now, it seems like it just reminds me so much of the Hawks when they locked in Joe Johnson, and there was like, okay, this is the team. This is like a middle, this is a middling playoff
of the
team.
North.
It really is, though, isn't it? Like, it's not, it's so much better than you used to be. You used to be so bad. The Knicks were the worst. And if you had told them, like, okay, you're going to be the 5 seed in the East for, like, the next 3 years, you'd be like, oh, great. But now, after all the hype and everything that was built up, it just feels like so deflating, doesn't it?
I mean, but what wouldn't feel deflating? They have one of the best defensive big men in the league. They have Amari Stoudemire, who's looked pretty good recently. They have one of the best pure scorers in the league. They have, ideally all of these things are the case, and so they should be okay. They should be able to compete for a championship at some point. At this point, even if it was still Shandon Anderson and Howard Eisen,
you need more good players.
Yeah, definitely. I just
What's that?
Even if it was still Shannon Anderson and Howard Isley right on the team right now, I would just want them to stay where they are. Just be a team. Just have the same 15 people in the building for like 2 months. Just try something and let it happen. The Knicks have tested something, not liked it, and then either tweaked it or just detonated it every year for the past like 10 years. I just want to have a team to
changing your
root for.
team. I love the strategy of changing your team every 30 games. It's just awesome. It's so fun.
It hurts so much. It's tearing me apart.
All right, well, let's try to be positive here.
Okay.
And
let's try to be positive.
you got this front line that's very talented, very well compensated.
Yes.
How do you make that lineup work where you don't have a pure shooter? I mean, to me, it still seems like Anthony has to develop a reliable 3-point shot in order to make that work. What sort of system or what sort of style of play do you think will work with those 3 guys on the court at the same time?
I think Melo learning to shoot, or not learning to shoot, but getting that jump shot back and feeling fully healthy and stuff is important. I think Amari being able to hit jump shots is doubly important because when they've looked the worst is when Chandler and Amari are both in the game, and they're not exaggerating, they're literally running into each other in the paint. So if Amari has that elbow, I'm not exaggerating. If Amari has that elbow jumper going again, which he has in the last couple of days, after having issues with his back and then having too much weight on his body and then dealing with, the tragedy of his brother dying, just going through all this stuff, it does feel like he's starting to play some basketball. But for him to be able to hit a jump shot and not trip over Tyson Chandler and, make people come out and defend him would really open everything up for everybody. And it would allow the Knicks to run a pick and roll, which I hope they still do sometimes.
With Anthony as the ball handler?
And, anything. There are so many options. Landry Fields has become such a good pick and roll ball handler. You can put Melo at the top. You can put Lin at the top. You can have Melo as the screener. Obviously, Amari or Chandler as the screener. There's a lot of options, and I hope they don't go away from that because even though it was struggling, that they did have a sort of a set series of options that often ended with Fields sending a pick and roll. I don't know what the Knicks offense is supposed to look like, but it'll probably be a little bit more Melo heavy than it was. And if that's the only way to keep the guy happy, then it's probably the best they can do. And I do think they can become a much more productive team, offensive team than they have been this season with, that kind of offense going.
I know I'm one of the rare Melo fans who is not a Knicks fan right now, but I love the idea of him running the pick and roll. I think he really has shown, one, that he can score running the pick and roll, and two, like you said earlier, he's not that bad of a passer. I think if you can, it's not that, it's not the ideal offense necessarily, but people have always wanted him to be more of an offensive weapon than just ball stopping, and I think that you put him in those situations, that's actually a pretty good option.
Yeah, it's a matter of striking a balance. At the beginning of the year, they were trying to make him do it every time down the floor, just out of necessity. And that's too much to ask of him. But he did show that he could do it, every odd possession and do it now and then. And it's just another look. No offense does one thing, and I think the Knicks should have several really good options every time they're down the floor. And Melo standing at the top of the pick and roll should be one of them, and I don't see why it won't be.
All right, man. Well, thanks for offering your insight on the Knicks.
Good luck
and
to you.
Kind of, I guess it's like a lateral move. It's so weird that it's such a big deal because these are philosophical clashes, but really it's just like probably a slightly positive, mostly lateral decision that but it has all these dramatic tensions about it.
That sounds like everything the Knicks have done since I was born. Slightly positive, mostly lateral. That's the Knicks
major decision. All right, thanks a lot, Seth.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Seth.
That was Seth Rosenthal from Posting
Sage
and Toasting.
Rosenthal's.
Sage Rosenthal's, a.k.a. the starting quarterback for some team, probably at some point. Used to be with Houston, right? Not a big
like
football
8 games,
guy, I admit.